But without further ado, it's my great pleasure to present Now and Then, Here and There. Please give a warm 11th Hope welcome to Jason Scott.
There's a tension in the room related to the HDMI cable coming out of this. It's sort of a random quantum cable. So if it clicks out in some sort of way, I'll improvise. But I apologize ahead of time for that possibility. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming to a talk with very little to say about it in the program. And I appreciate that. And fi to all the people who thought 10 p.m. was the time to get their dinner. And so on. And also hello to all the people who are on the stream and the people in the future of the centuries to come of seeing what's going on here and what people talked about in 2016. Thank you so very much for being here in whatever way you are, brain cases and so on. So there's two different kinds of people out in the world who deal with the stuff that I'm doing. And so you either kind of know what I've been up to or you don't have any idea. Let's go, I'm just going to go with the you never heard of me crowd. Put your hand up. Never heard of me. What the hell is this guy? A small smattering of brave individuals, possibly dragged in by other individuals, and I apologize to you in advance. So that's fine with me. My name's Jason Scott, and I go around the world doing lots of things to talk about history and computers and a bunch of other stuff. And besides being a public speaker, I'm also a documentary filmmaker. I am also a sort of a pundit and all-around general agitator in life. So that's just what I do. I'm sometimes known for the fact that I have a cat that has 1 million followers on Twitter. You know, the surreality of that cat always comes to me. For instance, here is Cinnamon Toast writing to the cat, asking if the cat wants to do any kind of a deal. The brand would like to know how much you charge per tweet is something that our forefathers would murder us for saying. So that happens. Oh no, Katrina Roberts' phone number is on this. Anyway, so I work at a place called archive.org. Yeah, okay. A fine, wonderful place. It exists on the internet. It's a wonderful place. It has the Wayback Machine and a whole bunch of other awesome stuff that I'll quickly talk about. In real life, of course, it looks like this, which my boss, Brewster Kale, bought because, quote, it looks like the logo. Which is a level of real estate speculation few of us really have the wherewithal to go after. Inside of the building, it's even more impressive. This is our great room. Inside of the great room are little statues. If you work at the place for 3 years, they build a little statue of you because, as my boss says, we don't have stock options. So in the background, of course, there are computers that are constantly whirring in the back of this renovated church. And each one of those holds about now it's currently holding 2 petabytes per tower. So there's a lot of petabytes sitting around on the archive. And there's me. I can't believe that 2 people went, aw. He's got black wings because he's the angel of death. And he's clutching software to his heart. I actually do a whole bunch of things involved with the archive. So besides the things that I'm doing involving, like I said, being the angel of death and wandering around and talking and making noise, I've got all these other projects I'm involved in, and the archive itself has a whole bunch of projects that it's involved in. The primary one can think of is the fact that it has millions of books up. Books that have been scanned by the archive or scanned by others. It also has movies, music, and web, and so we have stuff going from modern day all the way back in terms of text that you can read immediately in the browser. Click on it, full screen it, boom, you're reading it. Same thing with the music. We put up music and you click on it and you're playing music, and isn't that amazing? And same thing with movies. You go to the movies and you can click on them, start them up, and we don't have content ID. So it's much easier to get stuff up there, and you're able to play a whole bunch of different cool movies. And I'm always trying to put up things like hacker convention talks and a bunch of other things. This year is to trumpet something. Is the fact that I have something called the emularity. How many people here know what the emularity is? Good line of emularity. Okay, so here's what the emularity is. Of the people there, who's aware of what emulators are? All right. So the emulators are basically the ability to play older computing experiences in other computing experiences. We can, get really tootsie-fruitsy with the description, but it basically comes down to make old things run now through whatever means necessary. It's the Malcolm X of programming. So The emularity at the archive is this framework where we have taken emulation and put it into the browser, and we have ported it so that emulations run within the browser. Because when Brewster first hired me, he said, we do movies, we have music, we have books, and you can browse the web, but we have all this software lying around, and it's all dead. Is there any way to make it play? And he came up with a couple ideas, and I said, let's do it the hardest possible way. So if you go to the archive right now, and you click on software, and you click on that button, that Apple II will boot up in your browser and play Castle Wolfenstein. And there are 10,000 Apple programs. There are like 19,000 Spectrum programs. There are consoles. There's Atari 2600, 5200. There's weird machines like the Adventure Vision, things you've never heard of. And it's the fact that, this is why I worked with people on this, was that we wanted to turn, like if you say to your friend, dude, listen to this one recording of this band, listen to this one Rolling Stones take. I mean, it's obvious the bassist is drunk. And if you tell him, give him the link to the MP3 and he plays it, his first reaction is, holy crap, music is coming across my computer. How did you do that? It's in stereo, holy crap. Because we're just used to the fact that now music and movies are an instantaneous experience. And that's what we have now with the emularity. I'm able to go to like the phone store because I was bored and booted Doom up on phones at the Sprint store. Why not? And I'm able to put a Jaguar at Best Buy, which is going to ruin the sales of this machine. Or a museum in New Zealand connects to the Internet Archive through the emularity and put up an arcade machine that let them play arcade games locally. Or you can play Doom in a browser inside of a Link New York City kiosk. There's Doom everywhere now. So I wanted to make it that now computing is everywhere, it's everything, it's easy to get to, and it's everlasting. The emularity is very network aware, so it's not going away now. You can't get rid of emulation now. It's in the web now. And one of our software packages has had 1.5 million plays. 1.5 million. Which one is it? Of course, it's Oregon Trail. But here's the important thing about the Oregon Trail is that because it's up there, and it's played, by the way, once every 8 seconds on the Internet Archive, 24/7. And I was trying to figure out like some of the places where it was. It turns out it's in schools. So what you're seeing, if you look there, this is a school that made it part of their curriculum to come to the Internet Archive and make all the kids play Oregon Trail. Because they all want to play it. So they told me they used to have one copy, and one kid would play it, and all the other kids would have to surround them and yell at them what to do next. Now each kid gets to play the Oregon Trail on their own and die of dysentery instantly. So that's the emularity. Very proud of it. The emularity is actually a JavaScript port of both MAME and DOSBox, so that it's going to be able to do other JavaScript emulators too. But let's talk about MAME for a second, which is just amazing. One of the things that I find is that people either go to the emularity and play the game and they're done, or when you start to describe it to them what's really behind it, they don't quite get it. And this is a call out to people who are watching who may not have known this existed. It's at MAME, like MAME in the last couple years has really changed. The multi-arcade machine emulator, which has now got a different backronym, but let's just call it that, emulates thousands of computing platforms and tens of thousands of arcade games. And it just ports to JavaScript now because of the work of many, many, many people, and they open sourced it to a GPL license in this last year. It took them 8 months of work to track down everybody, some of whom were dead, to figure out the ownership. So it's 100% GPL'd. So it's blown up onto GitHub now, and so you can fix stuff in there today, and we're able to have the Internet Archive reflect your improvements within 24 hours. So if you see something in there, if you see something, say something. And so if you want to make a change, just go ahead. And I want to be clear, this is just my idea, and I worked with a lot of amazing, brilliant people. I'm not in the code. People sometimes go, and Jason Scott ported it. Jason Scott did nothing. Jason Scott makes stuff happen like this, like Ronald McDonald cooks burgers, okay? So let's just be clear about that. I'm the clown, but I'm just not the cook. All right? So for instance, they have this thing for a very obscure Swift card for the Apple II, and you can see all of the people who worked on it, and they go so far as to include an ASCII graph in the comments to talk about which chips did what. I mean, these people are working hard to get that history, and then lots of to-dos and please people. And then here are some of the programs that are out there. right? It's all these amazing, weird, old programs that before you wouldn't go and, like now you're like, what the hell is that? And you click on it, and 10 seconds later, you're looking at it, right? That's what we wanted to do. I wanted to turn all of computing history into an instantaneous browsing, embeddable experience. And so then you're like, well, okay, so the problem is like, you're like, wow, you played all those games and took screenshots. Fuck no. Fuck no, because once it's in the browser, why not just have a machine do it? So I have this machine called the Screen Shotgun, and it's a set of scripts that go in, boots up a headless Firefox, takes lots of shots, gets rid of the duplicates, chooses the most complicated one as the interesting one, and makes it the screenshot. So there's piles of these things. And I've never played them. And so there's a machine. You can be well assured there's a machine out there playing right now, playing video games all day, sadly, by the tens of thousands, unsure what's going on and hitting random keys to see what's going on. Poor thing. Plus, there are animated GIFs in the screenshots. So like, here's a boot up program, and it just happens to boot up, and Mr. Crackman, we love you. He's a name you can trust. When it boots up, it actually literally goes through and like looks for what's going on in the program and boots it up. So it's kind of neat. It's actually almost got like a kind of feel to it. And there's all sorts of crazy stuff in there. For instance, here's a benchmark program that uses 3D programming. So I mean, like, I love this one, and I love this one too. This one actually looks at the chips of the emulated machine and tells you how it's working. And I've always said that it's very, very, very much like the Matrix with the architect, where the program boots up, and the architect is there and says, your first question, while the most pertinent, while the most obvious is the least pertinent. And it's like, how's the floppy drive doing? And it's like, you have no idea where you really are, do you? No. You're inside of a machine that's inside of another machine that is running forever in a network of billions of machines, and it's been 30 years. But anyway, so yeah, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. Baby for you, pregnancy shareware. What more must I say? You know, this one right here, like here's an example of a weird program, and you notice how he's coded in shadows at a time before this would have been done. This is a boot that boots up to tell you it can't be booted. Anyway, so we initially did it with like PC machines and everything else, and I knew one day we were going to have to put in arcade machines. So we put in arcade machines. We put in 1,000 arcade machines from 1976 to about 1997, and put them up, and then waited. I think I tweeted one thing about it like, this happened, and then I waited. So that leads to The Verge reporting about it. That leads to TechCrunch reporting about it. That leads to Lifehacker. That leads to Forbes. That leads to it being a question on At Midnight with Chris. And it leads to Fox talking about how to play it. And then on the right there, you can see what the Internet Archive servers did. That shit hurts. And so, like, what caused that? What caused that? Well, the answer was, it turned out, like, when I did it and I was testing it, it had a 156 meg footprint. And if you run PengQuant, it makes it look the same, but it reduces, because you see all those cute little images of all the marquees. I didn't compress them well. So anyway, once we fixed that, it was great. We actually did really well, and we had 3 million new users in 1 week. So it turns out people like video games. And then, so now there's 600 video games. So just to be clear about that. But for like, like one brilliant month, Donkey Kong was free for everybody. And I have to define a certain lawyer's attitude when he came as like, what did you think? What did you? Anyway, so that was pretty good. So yeah, like a shout out to the emulators, because I want to make it clear, like this is emulation work, and what I wanted to do was that we have Emscripten, which ports C++ to JavaScript, and so the emulation team of MAME, they are the real heroes here. Same thing with the volunteers who came and helped do the porting of the code, all right? And also to the OCD nerds who work on all of this to make sure it's just right and it looks just good and everything else. And of course, the original creators of the game, only some of whom have been angry and many, many more have been really happy. Because there's nothing like finding out a thing you wrote, 30 years ago is suddenly up again and you can play it and show people what you did instantly. And of course, to my boss, Brewster Kahle. And when I always try to explain like why I really like working for Brewster, it's this. How many people here know about prac keeping? Okay, so in Jurassic World, there's a part when Christopher Pratt, playing the really cool and dashing zookeeper, holds off 3 dangerous velociraptors in this amazing scene where he's like doing this. And zookeepers thought this was the shit. So they started to do it with all of their animals too. And so you just started to have all these zookeepers doing this everywhere, and it was just whatever made it happy. Now I came running down when this hit to Brewster's office. I said, Brewster, I need you to do something, and I really can't explain any of it. And he was like, okay. I said, go do this, go do this, go do this. He's like, okay, and this is big with the kids? I'm like, yeah, and he's like, okay. So, and the reason that this really makes me excited, right? The reason that this just wonderfully makes me excited is the fact that Brewster trusted me. He's like, okay, all right, you think this is important? You go ahead. And when I was like, I want to make browsers be the source so we can have infinite simultaneous uses of the emulator, he went, okay, do it, all right. We'll see what happens. And what's happened is the emularity. So one of the things he's like, what do you want to do now? And I'm like, I want to close the air gap. This is kind of relevant to the stuff you're doing. Like, you guys are generating a lot of both physical and digital data. And the digital data is a little bit easier to deal with. You put the digital data somewhere, hopefully not somewhere stupid like Dropbox, and hope that it's going to last forever, or put it on Tumblr and not make a backup. Please make backups of your own stuff, just a little bit. There's a USB stick. Throw all your shit on it. Put the USB stick away. We'll find it when you're 50. But that's the thing, you got to. But the problem is that there's all this other technology that, even though it's digital, it's in formats that are hard to get to, and they represent real and actual culture. And I think that's something very important to get across to people is it's the culture that we really care about that's locked away on these floppies. So I have been really focused on that. This is a box of floppy disks. And we are capable of pulling the data off those floppies into disk images, which can then be loaded into the emularity and booted up. And this particular one came from the Corpus Christi Apple users group. So they're all up on the archive, that's fine. And when I grab them, they get synchronized and turned into that directory in the back. And I'm doing it with CD-ROMs. Currently, the archive has over 7,000 ISOs of CD-ROMs, everything from commercial to shareware to everything else. Lots and lots and lots of CD-ROMs. And I have thousands more that I'm going through. And I've got people sending me floppy disks and of all sorts, shapes, and sizes, and we're closing down and trying to get all of these things into digital form without assessing them, because robots, the same thing that the screen shotgun is going to have other friends who are going to work with it to analyze these machine-generated programs. So I'm not too worried. And so people see this and they're like, oh, what a cute milk crate. I'm like, this is where I store some of my software. And I'm like, it's not a milk crate. I got 7 of these. And these are everything from shareware CD-ROMs that have been sent to me to educational software. Just so you know, a little software nerdism. Games are easy to find. Educational, not so easy. Productivity, harder still. And then system is the hardest of all. And then custom is so out, I don't even count it anymore because it's almost impossible to find custom. That's like a once in a year you get a thing of like a full customized setup. But like the software that drives our elevators, the software that drives our HVAC systems, the software that's used to like drive a certain kind of hat knitting machine that's updated by one company, that's really hard stuff to get. So I'm trying to get all of it. But people are always like, wow, so all you're doing is you're saving Mario. And I'm like, fuck Mario. Mario's fine. When the Earth is like nothing but a smoldering heap of ash, there's going to be one obsidian Mario head floating for the evolved aliens to come down and find. It'll be like, wow, that was their god. This is my inbox. And this is what happens when the inbox gets turned into. And I'm just pulling them in. I'm not even looking at them. Like, okay, what's it say on it? Boom, 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 side one, side one. So this is going on. This is all going on very, very, very nicely. I put up a bunch of CD-ROMs, and this is me really sick and really poorly dressed at work, putting in CD-ROMs. Does anyone here remember Walnut Creek? Yeah. So here's what happened. I put out an article called, Yes, I Want Your Goddamn AOL CDs. And I said, I want all AOL CDs. These are all AOL CDs. They all have variations. And I love that people are like, why? And I'm like, because they were 50% of all CDs produced many years. They were. And there were variations upon variations upon variations. There were ones that had wrap-ins, pack-ins, customized brand label ones. They have cases where they've modified it. One of them will say 40 hours included, and then there'll be a second one that says 30 hours included, 10 hours bonus. Like there's all sorts of weird A/B testing and things, and they all have unique serial numbers for the different variations. So I was doing that, and what you were seeing here was the head of Walnut Creek mailed me and said, "Oh, so you're doing that? Do you want all our shit?" And I was like, "Yes." So this is the Walnut Creek back catalog, which is now on archive.org, and it was just a case of he had it in his garage, and when I'm loading it out, I drove down to his house, loading it out. He's like, "I told my wife there'd be a place that wanted it." So yeah, so that, so like this is absolutely one of those cases. I really like it because it really illustrates that even though we look at this as the detritus and the unpleasant aspect, and I mean, yes, people mail me and go like, "I destroyed all mine." And I'm like, thanks for the info. The fact is that this represents a whole mass of information and culture that we will then be able to read from and find, and there's unique versions and unique historical things. There's browser versions, there's special wrap-ins. I've had people who, like historians who needed to find a specific version of QuickTime. CD-ROM will provide it, things like that. And as we move forward with this, again, I think software is going to be as important as books and movies are to a previous generation. And then there's this thing I've been working on. Some people know about this. This is a coffee shop in Maryland. We used to be anyway, that I'm renting. And inside of it is boxes and boxes and boxes. And they are all of manuals. So here's what happened. I got a call from Place, because now, like I said, I'm the angel of death, and I come calling. And it was explained to me that a company called Manuals Plus was going out of business. And they had one of the largest collections of manuals for sale in the world. And I said, okay, well, how big is that? Turns out it's like unbelievably big. It's super big. It is this big when I came to it. So there's doubles, of course, but they said to me, I drove down because I knew he'd only take me seriously if I drove down. And I said, awesome. It was a Friday. And I'm like, so when are you throwing these out? He's like, Wednesday. And I was like, oh. So I put the call out, and people donated money, a lot of money, and came. And we could argue about what the value is, but to me, this is one-of-a-kind data going back 50 years about the operation of testing equipment. That's what these all are, testing equipment manuals. And there's tons and tons and tons of them, unique and interesting, that I think should be scanned. So volunteers came, and we tried to pull one unique of each one because they had multiple copies because they were for sale. People came around. They did their best. They weren't perfect. They did their best. And they started to assemble them into boxes and put them aside. And there were people assembling boxes. We bought $4,000 worth of boxes. This turns out to be wrong. Don't do that. There's a packing box called a Gaylord. And it's like the size of a children's playpen. But imagine you're crushing the child with manuals. And so that should have been what we did. But we didn't know that. We did what we could. So as a result, we ended up with 1,600 banker's boxes of unique manuals. A lot of them. These are all sitting in a coffee house in Maryland right now. And that's what it looked like by that Wednesday. So I wasn't allowed to take a picture of the dumpster. So anyway, the fact is we weren't there. I think these things have value. And there was debate about like amateurs doing it, but I'm like, better amateurs than nobody, better that than this. So that's where we did that, all right? So, here's the thing. All right. How are we doing on time? What time is it? Wonderful. I have timed this poor surprise perfectly. Excellent. All right, so let me complete what I'm saying here by saying that, so the work that when I joined the archive, and this year is my 5th year anniversary with the archive, and a big thanks to Brewster Kahle for hiring me, and a special thank you to the person who immediately wrote him upon the announcement to say, you should not hire this guy. Which I found out, to their credit, 4 months later. I was like, yeah, I'm really surprised people didn't complain because of my reputation. And they were like, oh, people complained. They said hiring you was the worst mistake, and it was going to drag you down the drain. But myself and my group of friends and associates and volunteers are now uploading something on the order of 4 or 5, actually it's more along the lines of like between 1/2 and 2 terabytes of data a day into the archive. And that means websites, PDFs, dragged software music pieces. I put up 7,000 hip-hop mixtapes. I put up, I worked with a guy who had been quietly taking away the Kmart repeatable cassette tapes that they play during the speaker announcements, and they're all up on the archive. You know, we've got everything from Russian Soldier of Fortune manuals and books to model making to magic to music and everything else, right? And we're just building up this massive pile of culture. And the thing is I have become completely agnostic. If it's well-formed, I no longer, and never really did, but don't play the form of gatekeeper. And what I'm saying out to you in this first of two requests is, please, you generate unique things, and you're in a place. So I have 3 words for you that are critical, and those 3 words are steal from work. Take from work things that work considers uninteresting or is no longer relevant because the project is over. Take things that work had and got rid of. Take things that were headed for the dumpster, but now they're going to head into a box that you seal and throw into your attic. Maybe with a note. We'd appreciate a note. Like, that doesn't just say, I am hoarding, but something that says something along the lines of like, finished project, you know, 4/2016. Because history has shown that's where the stuff gets saved. All of the stuff we have about Atari is because Atari sold at auction 2 filing cabinets full of all of the prototype artwork for all of their video games. And it was sold to the guy as 2 file cabinets. And when he picked them up, they said, we have a dumpster over there if you want to empty the file cabinets. And he said, no, I'm fine with not doing that. And Mark Cherny, who created Marble Madness, which is a video game, gave a talk at the Game Developers Conference where he showed the stuff and said, by the way, I didn't have any of this. It was this guy with these file cabinets. He had all of my original art, all of my original notes. I had to give it back to the place's work product. Steal from work. Now, I love the Hope Conference. I love coming here. This is a very real conference to me. This is a conference that feels like it talks about things that are not just the newest infosec knowledge. That is not just about how are we going to turn this lovely community into a juice machine that can squeeze out Bitcoin, right? It's got this whole sense of it. I mean, you got people who are on their own track, but this narrative that I've never liked, that the natural progression is curiosity, hacker, infosec engineer, drives me insane. There are other patterns. There are other pieces. So, but one of the things that's reflected of that in the Hope Conference is that not all the talks are meant to sell you on something. And a lot of the talks are meant to like fully change your mind, but to give you a glimpse into perhaps another damaged mind. You know? And I just want to say, because that's a very, very special thing. And it's held once every 2 years, like some sort of bizarre ritual. I mean, there's rituals, there's yearly rituals, and then there's those 2-year rituals. Those are pretty weird, right? Like once in a while we get a storm that just wrecks the lighthouse. And so, so in that way, I just want to say, I have a different talk, which was not announced. And I'm going to do it very quickly, and I'm going to put a thing, and it's very important to me because this is where real information comes to real people. And it's about not now and then, here and there, it's about suicide in the creative mind. All right, so. We live in right now a world of startup culture, and in startup culture, it's what matters is we all get together and things look great, and we put things together, and we all drink coffee, and at the end we all become rich, or we end up somewhere else, and all the way along we bitch about it on Reddit. And in this world, everything is going fine. Everything is going absolutely fine. We are in a wonderful world, and things are cool, and they're only going to get cooler, and one of these days we're going to hit it big, get rich, go down. So you're going to take a Node.js, you're going to attach it to a stack, you're going to LAMP your Apache, you're going to Apache your Uber, and then your Uber is going to Tumblr into your Yahoo. And so you are going to be rich, okay? And in a world where the Dollar Shave Club is sold for $1 billion, it's a real world, right? And so that narrative really, 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 really hits to people. And in that narrative, you as a young person, and this is mostly to young people, is one of come here and your talents which you have held inside, if we use them, will bring you a happiness and power you will not believe. And so come to our little farm and work in our little place. This is a dating site. I love that this is the other side of a dating site. What do you do? Helping people fuck. Coffee, coffee, coffee. Yep, now they're fucking. That one won't get fucked. But then what happens is that the story always ends because startups are parties and parties come to a close, right? And so what's one of the things that's displayed is that communities get shut down, places get shut down. And this is actually why I founded something called Archive Team, archiveteam.org, and that is an activist preservationist group. We go out and we save your shit. And that's what we do. We just got to go in all the time. We're constantly grabbing things, constantly grabbing news, tweets, everything that represents stuff that is supposedly transient and doomed because people are told it's going to last forever, but then it's going to get shut down. So many of these things get shut down. Like, I love this one, right? Here on the left, it says, it's going to be great. And then on the right, it says, after more than 3 years of great conversations, our team has decided to shut down branch.com. We want to let you download the full texts. So you got to sign in with Twitter. Thanks. Thanks. And there's a line that's always used, and that's called our incredible journey, which is thank you for being a part of our incredible journey. And yeah, and then they find your body under the porch. And so all of these, Oyster launched 2 years ago with a simple idea to build a better way. And then the rest of this, let me put on the thing, I'll translate it quick. Fuck you, buddy. So there's Kickstarters, right? And so Kickstarters are kind of like that writ large, and in fact, in some ways are, they took the world by storm. I have an idea, people give me money for the idea, my idea is amazing, and then I go down and become famous for the thing I finished. Everybody help me mold a pot. Hey, thanks for funding the pot. The pot's out, thank you. Woohoo, pot.com is big. And I had a Kickstarter in the first month or two of Kickstarter. And it was the Jason Scott sabbatical. Here's the pitch. Give me a lot of money, and I will spend all of that money. If you go back and look, that's exactly what it basically says. And the theory behind it was, I just got laid off from a job as a Unix admin. Can you imagine what a terror I was in the office? And I don't want to go become one. I love doing this history stuff on the side. If you guys give me enough money to survive for a few months on it, I promise I will redirect my life 100% towards history. And they gave me $25,000. And I did. I redirected my entire life towards history. It's all I do. My waking hours is work on saving things. So all of those people, they were pretty happy. Kickstarter does not allow this anymore. Give me a lot of money, and I will spend a lot of money is not around. That's what GoFundMe is for. Anyway, so I had done the Kickstarter thing. I've done it still. I've got a Kickstarter out there floating. And so I was involved in that. And of course, as you know, I was involved in lots of HackerCons and everything else. And people don't like this weird little narrative of like, give me a lot of money, because then they're like, well, what are you doing? And you just deal with it, right? And that's fine. The world will always have its layer of people who are just, it's a little too sad and don't want to do a thing. And I had a buddy named Skylar Town. Now, Skylar Town and I kind of knew each other, sort of, at DEF CON. Look at me. I look awesome. But I'm with him, and I just announced him because he was amazing. I called him 6 Second Skylar because this guy could pick a lock in 6 seconds. Isn't that amazing? And he was a little darling. And so he loved locks. Loves locks. Loves locks. I mean, he just loved these fucking things. And so he really got into like studying them. He's going to do lock history. He's going to get involved in everything. And this is a beautiful smiling face of a guy who knows what he's up to. He loves it. He wants to game his whole life around the study and understanding of what brought locks together. And he gives heart-rending consent, right? What a smiling, beautiful face. So he decided, I'm going to build my own lock picks, because I use them in competition. So let's put together this lockpick thing. And it was unbelievably popular. It actually was the second most funded Kickstarter at the time, behind Diaspora. Like, it got $80,000. He had wanted 4. Anyway, so here's the smiling face of a person who has been told that the world is his oyster and he's going to work on it and it's wonderful. And then he didn't make them. And he kind of fell out of awareness and he wasn't there. And he had been like updating, and this is great, and everything else, and going on. And this is where he says that I was committed basically against my will, because I was really, really, really in that bad shape, trying to figure out what to do. Now, the thing is that Kickstarter hadn't worked for him because it turned out that $4,000 was losing money. And so he just was losing more money the more people added to the Kickstarter, but there was no way to shut it off. And he can see all the smiles of startup culture, so he just let it grow until it became impossible. And so then he sent pictures of his room. And this was the room that he wasn't leaving for months at a time, behind that smiling face, right? And somehow I heard about this. Now, I hadn't backed it. I don't care about lockpicks. I mean, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. It's locked, it's not locked. Boom, yeah, go. Confetti. But the thing is that what I did see, and I'd seen this pattern before, was I was like, this guy is gonna die. He's gonna die. He's gonna look at all this and he's gonna say, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm never gonna make these people happy. And they were brutal to him, brutal. He'd take a picture of progress and they'd tell him the price of the camera that was used to take it. That's how bitter and angry it was. So this beautiful smiling thing was destroying somebody, and I said, okay, I'd like to come in and help. And I said, we're gonna do our best to try to deal with this in whatever way we can. We came in, it turned out he had bought the rewards, but he hadn't finished the lockpicks, but he had piles of rewards he had bought for thousands of dollars, and they were sitting in his basement, because he wanted to make it all perfect, and he didn't know what he was doing, and he was drowning, and everything else. And that's when I saw this, what I saw was this. And what these are, this is the saddest slide I have ever done in 15 years of doing it. These are the last tweets of people before they killed themselves. Each one of these is a person who tweeted that and then died because the world got to them and they were convinced. Now, some people you can't save. Some people are on a path you can't save. But a lot of these people were people who were just trapped in a story and a narrative that is pushed by our world that says, if you're not happy, if you look like you're sad, nobody wants you, get away from us. And it's poisonous and it's toxic and it's killing us. And there's young people in here who are living that right now, okay? And I want you to know it's not like that for you. This is what I felt from these people. I just wanted the hurting to stop. And the reason I knew that was because that was me too, right? That was me at 12, miserable, sad, hated where I was, hated the people I was with a parent I didn't want to be with, not getting the food I wanted and not getting the life I wanted. I was miserable. So I said, okay, this is me, this is the same me 3 years later, right? Fucking awesome. Look at that stolen payphone I tried to get into the yearbook. Look at that test set I'm holding up like it's a fucking trophy. Right? The highway blinky, again, not purchased. This is literally an evidence photo that I wanted to submit as a yearbook photo. And I loved cows, and I listened to Howard Stern. I had all this shit going on. And look at this. This is actually a local calling area. This is when I first actually met Emmanuel. It was about this time. It was like, this is a local calling listing, because of course it costs more to call here to there, and you want to have that right by your phone that you're freaking from to know what you're going to call and this stuff. This is a kid who has his whole world and became me. And that's amazing. And then there's a part of it that I particularly love, because it was taken by my fiance, who I met in high school, and we went off 20 years separate, and we're together now. So it's a very special photo to me. So here's another bad idea. Do not make a cow-themed internet service provider. Turns out, doesn't work. Not wanted. Here's a promo photo from it. Dial up, I swear to God, 1-81617 Cowtown, that was the number, cow-themed, cow.net. We will provide internet access to you. Trust us, come on. Doesn't this say stability? Fuck Quantum Link, fuck AOL, look at these guys. Oh shit, they're gonna own Delphi. Exactly. And here's the thing. So within a year, I was $15,000 in debt. Because no, it doesn't work. Use my blood as your salve, and don't open a cow-themed service provider. You know what the scary part is? There were 3. There was a cow-themed service provider in fucking Connecticut. Dude fucking bit me. Anyway, so I was $15,000 in debt because I couldn't afford I was paying so much money for a 56K modem, and I couldn't, we had this connection, the whole thing, and it was eating me alive, and I was borrowing from friends, and I wasn't eating, and I was going to friends' houses to eat, and I was, again, drowning, and I could tell every single day became pain for me because I woke up going, I've woken up and I am behind. I don't have the money. I don't know how to shut this down. People are going to be so disappointed in my Kelsey and team service provider. And so I was drowning again at 25. And then I got a job with a boss. His name's Patrick O'Malley. I went on to this tells you how long ago this was. I went to any.jobs and looked for Unix and $. And I looked for any Unix job that had, a salary. And it was one that said, $50,000 or something. I said, oh, I'll try that. So Pat O'Malley hired me, not because I was the best Unix guy, but because he gave me a homework assignment to read something up on RAID, and all the other guys just went, well, fuck this homework assignment, went off and got a job. But I came back and reported what I'd learned. And he said, okay, I'm going to hire you, but here's the thing. I hate it when we hire somebody and they drown out after like a month. It sucks. Then we got to get into this whole, like, are we really firing you? Are we letting you? Fuck that. What I'm going to do is you're going to be a consultant for me for 1 month, and we're going to pay you $75 an hour. And you're going to make bank. You're going to make bank. And after 30 days, if you suck, you got some money. Go find another job. And if you don't suck, you're going to make less money per hour, but now you got a job. So as a result, I made about, $7,000 or $10,000 in the first month, and I went and paid back everybody who I owed money to. So I went from $15,000 in debt to, within a couple months, $0 in debt. I can't imagine what my life would be like if I was like 33 and had had this debt over my head for 8 years. So I knew that was happening with Skylar too. Again, one more time, don't do this. For the love of God, don't do this. So I took over with a crew of other people, Brian Martin, Jason Aller, Andrew Gagney, and we took it over and said, okay, we are the board. We are the Skylar Repair Board. And we're going to do the best we can. So we went in, we found his locks and things he had taken, the rewards he was going to send to people. We found the T-shirts crumpled up that were in his basement. We flattened them out. We got the practice locks that he had. He had so much stuff ready to go, but because he didn't have the picks, he was paralyzed. We took it over, and at the Hasty Pastry, we assembled the packages. We had to borrow money, thousands and thousands of dollars of postage. And we had to make all the things he had promised and put them in there. And Skylar wasn't required to come. We were like, we're going to get this done. We're going to do this. And we had to go through all the locks and sort them out by number and everything else. And I actually went to Flickr and did a search for sweatshop and left that on a slideshow above us. So that's what's going on there. So that's just running over us the whole time, is this sweatshop photos. But Skylar came by, which was very, very nice of him. I thought that was pretty amazing. He was sitting over watching us do this. And I'm doing work, and I'm getting stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute, is it like this to this? And I go over to Skylar, and his head's on this desk. And I'm like, hey, dude, what's up? And he looks up to me, and he's crying. And I'm like, oh no, what's wrong? And he goes, how do I have friends still? Was what he said to me. Because he was just devastated at that point, and the fact that people were reaching out to help him just blew him away. And this is what hundreds and hundreds of boxes send out to people. And of course, people immediately mailed back, where are the fucking lockpicks? And that was my job, to take the brunt and go like, well, there aren't any yet. We had many, 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 many boxes. And the post office fucking hated me. I think I'm on the wanted posters. I think they put me there. No, we're closed. Anyway. But actually within a few months, Skylar was actually making lockpicks. And he was doing them by hand. Don't do this, but he was doing them and cutting them out, and he was assembling them by hand. This is completely inefficient. Don't do this. But he was producing lockpicks of some sort. And then we packaged up the ones that were there and sent them to the high. We said, okay, if you gave $1,000 towards this, you get this amount stuff, and we're going to send you all the stuff we can, and we're going to send the lockpicks shine. So actual lockpicks went out. The project was absolutely impossible. I mean, we ran the numbers. It's impossible. It couldn't work. How couldn't it work? I mean, this was like one of the bonuses was a lock set. And you only had to give like $250 to get this lock set. It's worth $600. So he had to make 5 of them. So he did. They're really nice. It's the stupidest thing in the world. He's losing money every time he gives one of these to the thing. But we did. We got them to the whole group. And he made this is super inefficient. He made a little arc welder for himself that would do the welding and everything else. And, he did all this crazy shit. With Bill's own sander and did it. The project's now mostly just merely incredibly hard now. He still owes like 20,000 lockpicks. I don't know if he's ever going to produce them. I honestly don't. People are like, what? And what happened is that I ended up, at one point, we had gotten to a point where it was like, look, we've given you all the tools. We've produced a business plan. It's not a great one, but we've produced a business plan. Here's one. Here's what it will cost you. Here's all the numbers you need to sort of make it work. And we can't do anything. We can't oversee anymore. Like, you have to do it. Here's the numbers. Here's the metal. And he may or may not do it, but we said, okay, we're misleading people now by being a repair board, because the repair board is done. It put things back on a track, a really hard, unpleasant track. And Skylar and I haven't talked much in the last year and a half since this happened, but all I know is that Skylar is alive. And so this was the last picture when I last saw him, right? So, he could be sad inside, but he stuck around. And people are like, oh, so why? Again, I have to say, I didn't know Skylar that well. I don't care about lockpicks, but I just didn't want someone to die. And so, when you see somebody out there and you're like, care about them, and you're like, something's wrong, they're smiling too much. I'm just saying, please reach out to them. Talk to them a little bit. Even if they're putting it on, be there. Be that one little line, that one little bit. Get in there. Lockpicks were produced. Things were done. It became an annoyance and an embarrassment, but it wasn't a crushing, unattainable mountain starting his every single waking day. He now works as a barista. You can clap if you want. So I'm just saying that's a real thing. Okay. So I gave a smaller group this discussion, and this is Chloe Wheel who passed on her own hand and seemed as happy in the world. And this is Ilya, who was one of the architects of Diaspora, the most funded Kickstarter, and he killed himself at 22. And so you've probably got friends like this maybe on that edge. All I want is for you to make that one little step. Yeah, it's great, I'm saving a lot of goddamn computer history, and it's great that you can play Castle Wolfenstein in a browser, but if the real payload of this little blimp I was given is to drop the idea of saving a life, that's what I really care about. I care about you out there. And I know you're out there, by the way. This is for the person who's watching this right now who's crying out on the stream. And we love you. We want to see what you do next. We care about you. So stick around a little longer. Thanks. I don't really want to answer any questions, but if you're literally there oh, Jesus, right now, go ahead. It's right there burning right now. Is there one? Yep. No. What? Should I mail you CDs? Yes, mail me CDs. I'm glad that's your takeaway. Jason Scott, care of the Internet Archive, 300 Funston Avenue, San Francisco, California, 94118. Please don't send anything that bubbles, burns, or ticks. Shout out to the guy who did send me a blank CD with the words written on it, "Fuck you, you useless idiot." Yes, of course I archived it. It's stored in the... Have you learned nothing? Anyway, okay, so I'll be back at midnight for the Hackers Got Talent. I'm the MC. a little bit of levity, and I'm just happy for everyone who's stuck around for this. And thanks a lot again, and enjoy hope.